You open your phone, and the dashboard is just bathed in green. Everything is trending up. I mean, your follower count on social media just hit a new milestone.
Right.
Your LinkedIn network has surged past the 500 mark, which the algorithm happily congratulates you for. Your calendar is this solid, unbroken block of color from 8 in the morning until 8 at night.
Oh, absolutely.
And your Slack channels are a constant waterfall of notifications, pings, direct messages. On paper, by every modern quantitative metric, you are thriving.
Yeah.
You have never been more connected to more human beings in the entire history of our species.
It's a phenomenal illusion, though. It really is. We look at those dashboards and we experience what sociologists call cyber prosperity.
Cyber prosperity.
Yeah, we feel rich in connections.
Yeah.
But that digital wealth is masking a profound flesh and blood wasteland.
And that is the terrifying paradox we are tearing down today.
Yeah.
Because while our social metrics are exploding, human loneliness is skyrocketing.
It really is.
We are living through an invisible, chronic, and frankly, entirely lethal pandemic.
Yeah.
And the most shocking part of the data we're looking at today isn't just that people are lonely.
No, it's the mechanism behind it.
Exactly. It's that the exact tools you are using to cure that loneliness, the packed schedules, the networking mixers, the perfectly curated online personas, are the precise mechanisms accelerating your isolation.
Yeah, they're making it worse.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into the research and the deeply counterintuitive insights from Tony Meo's work, specifically the courage to be in community.
It's completely paradigm shifting.
It is. We're going to explore why everything modern society has taught you about networking, fitting in, and being brave is completely backwards.
We really have to completely dismantle the modern blueprint for social survival, because right now, the global data is just staggering.
Yeah.
We are looking at a reality where over 1/3 of adults globally are suffering from chronic loneliness.
A third. That's massive.
And we need to draw a very hard line right out of the gate between solitude and loneliness.
Right. Because, I mean, I love a quiet Friday night by myself.
Yeah.
Give me a good book and an empty house and I'm thrilled. That's not what we're talking about here, right?
Not at all. Solitude is a choice you make to recharge. Loneliness is a systemic condition.
Okay.
It is the physiological and psychological state of lacking true community and deep belonging, regardless of how many people are physically in the room with you.
So you could be surrounded.
Exactly. You can be in the center of a crowded, open-plan office, surrounded by 50 people you interact with daily, and still be dying of chronic loneliness.
Wow.
To understand why this is happening exactly at the moment when our social frequency is at an all-time high, we have to look at a statistical trend called the scissors gap.
The scissors gap. I was looking at this chart in the research, and it's one of those visuals that instantly makes you rethink your entire week.
It really is.
Walk us through how this looks.
So if you visualize a basic graph, you have two lines tracking over the last few decades. The first line represents the sheer frequency of social contact, the number of text messages sent, meetings attended, virtual coffees, networking events.
Right.
That line is shooting aggressively upward. It's a steep positive slope. But the second line represents true psychological safety.
The actual feeling of belonging.
Yeah, the feeling that you are unconditionally accepted by a group, that you can drop your guard entirely, that line is plummeting straight down.
Right, so they cross.
They intersect and diverge, looking exactly like a pair of open scissors.
So the data is telling us there is an inverse relationship here. Going to more events, sending more emails, having more shallow interactions isn't just failing to cure the loneliness.
No, it's not neutral.
The act of doing those things is actively driving the feeling of safety down.
We call it the cognitive inversion. Our brains assume that if we are thirsty for connection, we should just, drink from the fire hose of social events.
It makes sense logically.
But shallow, people-pleasing interactions exact a massive toll. They require you to construct and project a fake character. You walk into a networking event, and your brain immediately starts a complex computational process. It's like, read the room. What is this group value? What are the taboo topics? How successful do I need to appear?
You're calibrating.
You build an avatar on the spot, and then you have to puppet that avatar for 2 hours.
It's like having an old laptop, and you accidentally open 20 different browser tabs of video editing software and a massive spreadsheet all at once.
That's a great way to put it.
The internal fan starts screaming. The battery drains from 100% to 10% in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And the machine is literally burning hot to the touch.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like to work a room. You leave the mixer, get into your car, and you are physically depleted. You don't feel nourished by the connection. You feel like you just finished a grueling, high-stakes theatrical performance.
Because you did. And your body registers that performance as a state of high alert. This brings us to a metric that I think most people dismiss as hyperbole until they see the clinical data.
Lay it on us.
Chronic lack of authentic community damages your physiological health as much as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Wait, I need to stop you there. Because when I first read that in the source material, I thought it was just a poetic metaphor.
Well, most people do.
Like loneliness breaks your heart.
Yeah.
You know? But the medical researchers are being completely literal. 15 cigarettes a day.
Completely literal.
How does an emotion translate into cellular damage?
Well, it comes down to evolutionary biology and our endocrine system. When you are chronically isolated, and again, not physically alone, but fundamentally disconnected and playing that exhausting avatar, your nervous system perceives that you are without a tribe.
Right.
For early humans, being without a tribe meant you were highly vulnerable to predators. So your body engages its fight-or-flight system to keep you hypervigilant.
So your brain is basically whispering, you have no backup. Stay awake. Keep watch.
Constantly. And that vigilance keeps your primary stress hormone, cortisol, permanently elevated.
And cortisol is toxic long-term, right?
Right. I mean, in short bursts, cortisol is great. It helps you run from a bear. But when it's constantly trickling into your bloodstream over months and years, it acts as a systemic toxin.
Wow.
It crashes your immune system, it drastically increases systemic inflammation, it stiffens your arteries, and it elevates your resting blood pressure.
That is terrifying.
We treat loneliness like an existential sorrow, maybe something for a therapist to unpack. But your cardiovascular system treats it like a lethal poison. It is a physiological crisis.
Okay, so if the toll is that high if shallow performative socializing is draining our psychological batteries and literally poisoning our bloodstreams with cortisol, it raises a massive glaring question.
Why do we do it?
Yeah. Why do we keep doing it? Why don't I just decline the invitation to the corporate mixer, take off the mask, and stop pretending?
Because doing that triggers a survival mechanism that is older than our conscious thought. To understand why we cling to the mask so desperately, we have to look at the massive biological cost of modern civilization.
Right.
We're fighting a factory setting that was programmed hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Let's trace that back. Because human beings didn't evolve in high-rise apartments or isolated remote work cubicles.
No, not at all.
Our operating system was built for a very specific environment.
Our brains evolved in tight-knit, interdependent bands of roughly 50 to 150 people.
The tribe.
Exactly. In that environment, every individual was deeply embedded in a dense, overlapping safety net. You knew everyone, they knew you, and your survival was entirely collective.
You couldn't survive alone.
No. But look at the trajectory of human history. We moved from the tribe to the agrarian village to the industrial grid of the neighborhood, and now into the hyper-atomized digital society.
It's all broken apart.
We live in massive urban centers containing millions of people, yet we sleep in isolated boxes, we commute in isolated metal pods, and we work in isolated digital silos.
We've completely stripped away the tribe, leaving the single atomized individual to face the era-defining anxieties of the 21st century. I mean, economic instability, global pandemics, artificial intelligence, entirely alone.
And this creates what we call the survival paradox. Our hardwired desire to be accepted by the group is so overwhelming that it ends up destroying our ability to form deep relationships.
Break down the mechanics of that paradox for us. Why does wanting to be accepted destroy the depth of the relationship?
So in the ancient wild, if you angered the tribe and they kicked you out, you didn't just have a sad weekend where nobody texted you.
Right.
You died. You would freeze, starve, or be eaten. Separation was a literal death sentence.
High stakes.
The highest. To prevent you from wandering off or behaving in a way that got you exiled, the human brain evolved a brilliant, albeit brutal, alarm system. It co-opted the physical pain pathways.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The brain translates social rejection into agonizing physical pain to force you back into the safety of the group.
I want to linger on this because it fundamentally changes how we view our own anxiety. When someone says, it really hurt when I wasn't invited to that dinner, we tend to think they are just using colorful language.
Exactly. We dismiss it as dramatic.
But neurologically, they're giving a medically accurate description.
They are. There is a landmark study in neuroscience, often referred to as the cyberball experiment.
Oh, I saw this in the notes. It's fascinating.
It is. Researchers put participants inside an fMRI machine, which tracks blood flow and brain activity in real time.
Right.
They had the participant play a simple virtual game of catch on a screen with two other avatars who they believed were controlled by real people in other rooms.
Just tossing a digital ball.
Right. At first, the three avatars tossed the ball equally. But then the researchers programmed the other two avatars to stop throwing the ball to the participant. They just toss it back and forth to each other.
Leaving them out.
Yeah. The participant is suddenly, deliberately excluded.
Just a completely trivial, low-stakes virtual game.
Highly trivial. But when the researchers looked at the fMRI scans of the excluded participants, they saw something incredible.
What happened?
The anterior cingulate cortex, the exact region of the brain that processes the distress of physical pain, like a burn or a broken bone lit up like a Christmas tree.
Wow.
In fact, there is a 90% activation overlap between experiencing social rejection and experiencing physical trauma. As far as the neural circuitry is concerned, a broken femur and being left out of the group chat trigger the exact same alarm bells.
That is a massive vindication for anyone who has ever been told they are being too sensitive about office politics or social snubs.
Absolutely.
Your pain isn't a character flaw. When you feel the temperature of a room drop after you suggest an unpopular idea, your brain isn't being dramatic. It is screaming in agony, convinced that you are about to be cast out into the tundra to be eaten by wolves.
That's exactly it. And because that phantom pain is so agonizing, modern humans will do almost anything to avoid triggering it.
Hence the masks.
Yes. This is where the scale of human behavior becomes severely unbalanced. On one side of the scale, you have the option to wear the fake people-pleasing mask.
Okay.
This offers low authenticity, but it guarantees a high rate of surface-level acceptance. On the other side of the scale, you have the option to present your true, flawed self.
Which is risky.
High risk. It offers high authenticity, but carries a high risk of rejection. And the primal brain slams its hand down on the mask side every single time. We constantly choose to abandon our true selves because the brain thinks blending in equals biological survival.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here. I mean, I understand the evolutionary theory and I understand the fMRI scans, but let's bring this into the modern economy. I have a mortgage, I have car payments. If I walk into a board meeting tomorrow, take off my mask, and show my boss my highly authentic, anxious, messy self, I'm not going to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, but I will absolutely get passed over for the promotion.
Or fired.
Right. Maybe I even get fired.
Yeah.
Fitting in isn't just a caveman instinct. It's an economic necessity in a corporate hierarchy. So if our biology and our economy both demand that we wear the mask, isn't wearing it just the smart, rational play?
It is entirely rational in the short term, but to see the long-term devastation of that strategy, we only have to look at the people who have played the game perfectly.
The winners.
Exactly. We have to look at the people who survived and climbed to the very top using that exact mask. This is the core of Tony Mayo's empirical work.
Right.
He doesn't just theorize in a university setting. He coaches top-tier performers. CEOs, founders, high-net-worth individuals, the people who won the economic game you just described.
The peak of the pyramid. The people whose masks were so effective they conquered their industries.
And his findings reveal a startling reality about that peak. It is what we can call the elite wasteland.
The elite wasteland.
Yes. There is a tragic inverse relationship at play in our society. Power distance correlates with extreme psychological isolation.
So the higher you go,
the lonelier it gets. The individuals at the absolute zenith of power, wealth, and societal achievement often have an inner life that is a completely barren wasteland. They are surrounded by people, yet they have never been more alone.
Why does the mask fail them once they win? I mean, you'd think the people with the most resources would have the bandwidth to build the best communities.
You'd think so, but it's because of the specific type of armor they have to build to get there. Leaders in our society are conditioned to project what we traditionally call bravery.
Bravery, yeah.
They build an incredibly dense, heavy psychological armor to hide their fragility, their doubts, and their imposter syndrome from the market, from their boards, and from their employees.
We really need to pause and reframe the definitions here because Mayo completely subverts how we use these words.
He does.
We use bravery and courage interchangeably, but he argues they are opposites. What we conventionally call bravery is actually a disguise for the weak, while true courage is the exposure of the strong.
It is a vital distinction. Let's analyze bravery first. In corporate culture, bravery is highly performative.
It's an act.
It's a defensive mechanism. Bravery is puffing your chest out, never showing a drop of sweat, always having the answer, and never admitting a mistake.
The classic alpha leader.
Right. It is an outward-facing shield entirely designed to prove your invincibility to the outside world while frantically protecting a fragile ego on the inside.
It makes me think of an old-school deep-sea atmospheric diving suit.
Oh, interesting.
You know, the ones made of solid brass and iron that look like walking tanks?
Yeah, the really heavy ones.
Yes, if you put that suit on, it protects you from the crushing pressure of the deep ocean. You can walk around on the bottom of the sea and the water won't crush you. But you also can't feel the water. You can't touch the coral. You can't physically interact with another diver. And eventually, if you never take the suit off, you run out of oxygen and suffocate inside it. The protection becomes the hazard. The armor becomes a coffin.
That is a perfect encapsulation. Bravery is the brass diving suit. Everyone applauds how deep you can go, but no one realizes you are suffocating inside.
Man.
True courage, on the other hand, requires zero armor. It is fascinating to look at the etymology, actually. The root of the word courage is cor, the Latin word for heart.
Heart.
Yeah. Courage isn't about being bulletproof. It is about total acceptance of reality. It is taking off the diving suit, standing on the deck, and delivering your unvarnished, flawed self to the community.
Wow.
Bravery says, look at how invincible I am. Courage says, here is where I am broken.
But dropping that suit is terrifying. And I know a lot of people think they have found a middle ground hack for this.
Oh, the hack. Yes.
They think, okay, I won't be vulnerable myself because it's too dangerous. I'll keep my brass suit on. But I will be super empathetic to my team. When they struggle, I'll be the nice boss. Mayo calls this the empathy trap.
He does, and it fundamentally fails. It is one of the most common mistakes modern leaders make. They try to deploy empathy as a management tool without offering any of their own vulnerability.
Then why doesn't that work?
Because psychologically, empathy without personal vulnerability doesn't register as connection. It functions as a high-level form of manipulation.
That's a heavy accusation against the concept of empathy. How does trying to understand someone's feelings turn into manipulation?
We have to understand the mechanics of the empathy funnel. Empathy, by definition, requires a shared resonance of feeling.
Okay.
Imagine a manager sitting across from an employee who is deeply stressed and overwhelmed. Maybe they just made a massive error on an account.
Very common scenario.
The employee is exposed, raw, and vulnerable. If the manager keeps their flawless, armored mask on and says in a soothing voice, I understand this is hard for you. I'm so sorry you are struggling. It doesn't build a bridge.
Because the power dynamic is entirely asymmetrical.
Exactly. The manager is observing the employee from the safety of a high fortress. The manager is safe. The employee is exposed. To the employee, it doesn't feel like true connection. It feels like condescending pity.
Ouch.
It feels like being studied through a microscope. The manager is gathering emotional data on the employee without offering any collateral of their own. That dynamic breeds resentment and distrust. True resonance only occurs when two raw wounds touch.
If you are entirely bandaged up behind a layer of glass, you aren't connecting with their pain, you are just cataloging it.
Beautifully said.
And this points to an even broader behavioral flaw we all have, which is the perfectionism wall.
The perfectionism wall is the ultimate tragic irony of human socializing. We are sold this idea that perfection makes us magnetic.
Oh, absolutely. We spend our entire lives acting as our own PR agencies.
Right.
We polish our resumes until there isn't a single gap. We curate our Instagram feed so every vacation looks like a movie set. We rehearse our talking points for meetings so we sound impossibly articulate.
It's exhausting.
We do all of this exhausting labor under the assumption that if we eradicate all our flaws, people will finally admire us and want to be close to us.
But the data shows the exact opposite. If you plot this on a scatter graph, mapping the display of perfection against interpersonal closeness, you see a massive negative correlation.
A negative correlation.
Yes. The closer you get to presenting yourself as flawless, the further away you push people. Perfection doesn't attract. It repels.
Why? I mean, we like nice things. We like high-quality products. Why don't we like flawless people?
Because a flawless surface offers no handholds. Think about the physics of it. If you present yourself as a perfectly polished, frictionless glass wall, anyone who tries to connect with you just slides right off.
Oh, wow.
There is no space in a perfect life for anyone else to exist. If you never make a mistake, no one can help you. If you know everything, no one can advise you. If you never struggle, no one can comfort you.
Right.
By presenting yourself as a godlike entity that needs nothing, you render the people around you completely useless.
You strip them of their utility in your life.
Precisely. And humans need to feel useful to the people they care about. We actually love people because of their cracks, not their polish. The flaws are the structural glue of relationships. It is the puzzle piece with the missing edge that actively requires another piece to slide in and connect.
I love that visual. A perfectly square, solid block can't interlock with anything.
Right.
It just sits there alone. It's the jagged edges, the missing pieces that allow two puzzle pieces to lock together. And that interlocking is what Mayo calls the conversion mechanism, right? How exposing a weakness actually creates safety.
Yes. When you expose a flaw or admit a mistake, you aren't just being honest, you are sending a deeply primal biological signal to the other person.
What's the signal?
You are broadcasting, I have lowered my weapons, I am exposing my soft underbelly, I am not a threat to you, and in fact, I need you.
Huh.
When the other person's brain receives that signal, it instantly deactivates their own fight or flight response. Your vulnerability becomes the key that turns off their cortisol alarm.
Okay, conceptually, the puzzle piece metaphor makes total sense. But I want to drag this back into the messy reality of a Tuesday morning staff meeting.
Let's do it.
Because there has to be a structural limit.
Yeah.
I can't just walk into a conference room, drop my laptop on the table, and unleash a torrent of my deepest childhood insecurities and existential dread onto my marketing team.
Oh, please don't do that.
Right. If I do that, I'm not building trust. I'm making everyone incredibly uncomfortable, and I'm probably getting a call from HR.
Definitely.
How does vulnerability function practically without destroying professional boundaries?
That is the crucial pivot point. Vulnerability without boundaries is not courage. It is emotional dumping, and it is highly destructive.
Emotional dumping.
Okay. It forces other people to carry a weight they didn't consent to. This is where Mayo transitions from deep psychological theory into practical sociology. He looks at how we build the physical and social structures around us.
The actual environments we work in.
Exactly. He redefines what a safe community actually is, and his definition shatters the modern corporate illusion.
The modern corporate illusion being that a good community is basically a cozy, comfortable country club.
Right.
A place where everyone shares the exact same hobbies, everyone uses the exact same polite language, and everyone is always smiling.
Which is the definition of a highly fragile artificial ecosystem. A real community is not a club of clones. A real community is a structural container designed to safely hold imperfections, friction, and conflict.
This is one of the biggest aha moments in the material. The safest communities are not the ones with the least conflict. The safest communities are the ones that permit and actively encourage the most intense conflicts.
Let's break down the trust matrix to understand why.
Okay, the trust matrix.
Imagine a grid with 4 quadrants. On the vertical axis, you have the level of psychological safety, meaning how confident are people that they won't be fired, banished, or shamed for speaking up.
Right.
On the horizontal axis, you have the level of overt conflict and disagreement. If you look at the quadrant with high safety but extremely low conflict, you might think, oh, that's a great place to work. No one ever argues.
Sounds peaceful.
But sociologists call that quadrant fake harmony.
Fake harmony. I've been in those environments.
We all have.
It's the meeting where the boss proposes a terrible new initiative and everyone nods, smiles, and says, great idea, synergy, let's circle back.
Exactly.
And then the moment the meeting ends, everyone clusters in the parking lot or jumps on a private Slack channel and absolutely shreds the idea.
They suppress their real thoughts to keep the superficial peace.
Because they don't actually feel safe.
Right. And fake harmony is inherently brittle. The moment a real crisis hits, revenue drops, a pandemic strikes, a major client leaves, that low conflict environment shatters because it has zero structural integrity.
It hasn't been tested.
They haven't built the muscles to handle stress. Now look at the opposite quadrant. High safety, high conflict. This is the hallmark of a highly efficient, robust community.
Because if we go back to the premise of authenticity, conflict is just the natural, unavoidable byproduct of a group of humans being real.
Yes.
If everyone brings their unvarnished true selves to the table with their different backgrounds, different blind spots, and different passions, they're going to clash.
Inevitably.
If there's no clashing happening, somebody is lying. Somebody is wearing the diving suit.
Exactly. In a truly safe container, people know that the conflict is ideological, not personal. The attack is on the idea, not their character.
That's a huge distinction.
Two team members can have a vicious, high-volume debate in a conference room about the direction of a product architecture, tearing each other's arguments to shreds, and then 15 minutes later, they go grab a coffee together.
Because the container holds.
The container of their relationship is strong enough to hold the fire of that friction without melting.
If you are in a group where nobody ever raises their voice, where nobody ever strongly pushes back against the leader's bad ideas, you aren't in a safe community. You are in a polite hostage situation.
A polite hostage situation. That is a brilliant way to describe the culture of 90% of modern organizations. People are terrified to make a sudden movement.
So, practically speaking, if I'm listening to this and I realize my startup, my corporate division, or even my family dynamic is stuck in a polite hostage situation,
Yeah.
how do I break them out? If I just walk in and say, hey, everyone, let's start having high conflict arguments and being vulnerable, they're going to think it's a trap.
Oh, they'll absolutely think it's a trap.
How do we build that container?
Tony Mayo provides a very specific operational playbook for this. It is a 3-step method for breaking the ice, and the entire goal is to establish sincerity as the baseline currency of the group.
Let's walk through this 3-step icebreaker. What is the first move a leader or an individual has to make?
Step 1 is by far the most difficult because it fights every instinct we have. Abandon self-justification.
That is incredibly hard.
It is agonizing. When a problem arises or a deadline is missed, our immediate reflexive instinct is to build a legal defense case in our minds.
Of course.
I was late because the traffic on the bridge was backed up. The project failed because the client changed the brief at the last minute. I yelled because I was hungry.
It's always external.
You have to abandon that padding entirely. You state the raw fact without the protective armor.
So instead of a 5-minute preamble about supply chain issues, you just say, I completely mismanaged the timeline for the Q3 launch.
Full stop.
Full stop.
Let the silence hang there.
No excuses. I can see how that strips the armor away instantly. What is step 2?
Step 2. Reveal your hopes and fears. You don't just deliver the cold data of the failure, you provide the emotional context behind it. You hand them the stakes as they exist inside your own head.
How does that sound in practice?
So you follow up that admission by saying, I mismanaged the timeline, and my fear is that this is going to create a massive bottleneck for the production team next week and ruin your weekend. My hope is that we can sit down today and find a triage workaround.
You are actively handing them your vulnerability. You aren't just a machine reporting an error. You are a human who is worried about the impact of your actions on them.
Exactly.
That naturally leads to step 3.
Step 3, actively listen and feedback. You ask for their input on the mess you've made, and this is the critical part, you do not defend yourself when they give it.
The ultimate test.
If they say, yes, your delay really screws up my schedule, you don't say, well, I couldn't help it. You simply repeat back what you hear to prove you are absorbing their reality.
So you validate them.
You say, what I'm hearing is that my mistake has caused you a lot of undue stress, and I understand why you are frustrated.
It sounds so simple when we outline it like that, but doing it in real time, under the fluorescent lights of a boardroom, feels like jumping out of an airplane without a parachute.
It really does.
But Mayo argues that the return on investment, the literal ROI of this vulnerability, is astronomical. It's not just about feeling good. It directly translates into exponential organizational productivity.
It drives productivity because it reclaims a massive amount of wasted cognitive energy. Think about the mental bandwidth required to maintain the polite hostage situation.
It takes work to lie.
Constant work. Mayo's data suggests that in a standard, low-trust office environment, teams often waste up to 50% of their daily cognitive energy on defensive posturing.
50%.
Half of their brain power is dedicated to hiding small mistakes, managing optics, crafting defensive emails with 10 people CC'd, and navigating workplace politics.
That is a staggering loss of human potential. You're paying people for their full brain, but they are spending half of it just holding up the heavy brass shield.
Precisely. But when a leader utilizes that 3-step playbook, the culture shifts, the armor drops.
And what happens to that bandwidth?
Suddenly, that 50% of trapped mental bandwidth is unlocked and reallocated to actual problem solving. Information flow hits maximum velocity.
Give me an example of that velocity.
If a project is failing, you don't have to wait 3 weeks for a highly sanitized post-mortem report to find out. A junior developer will just walk into your office on a Tuesday and say, hey, the code is broken and I don't know how to fix it, because they aren't afraid of being punished for their imperfection.
It reduces what economists refer to as transaction costs to near zero.
Exactly.
In any social or business ecosystem, if I don't fundamentally trust you, the transaction costs are enormous. We need airtight contracts, we need compliance officers, we need lawyers, we need endless oversight committees. All of those things are expensive and slow.
Very slow.
But when unmasked sincerity becomes the norm, the trust radius expands instantly. You don't need a 50-page contract for every internal decision when trust is absolute. Sincerity, because it is so incredibly rare, has become the most scarce, high-value, invisible currency in modern society.
And if we zoom out from the corporate lens, this principle applies to macro-societal survival.
How so?
In an era defined by systemic risks, whether we are talking about sudden economic recessions, global health crises, or the massive disruptions caused by technological shifts, a deep, authentic, high-conflict community is the ultimate, highest ROI insurance policy you can possess.
That's a bold claim. Better than a diversified portfolio.
Far better, because it provides a physical and psychological buffering that absolutely no amount of individual wealth can purchase. You can be a billionaire sitting in a luxury penthouse, but if the supply chains break down, or the banking system falters, or you suffer a profound personal tragedy.
The money doesn't care about you.
Right, and if you have no one around you who authentically cares about you without a financial incentive, you are entirely fragile. But a community that has practiced the hard work of high conflict, high vulnerability connection is deeply resilient.
They can weather the storm.
They can pivot, they can pool resources, they can absorb systemic shocks together, and they can emotionally regulate each other during a crisis.
It's wild to think about. We spend so much time and capital looking for complex, high-tech solutions to our modern crises. Corporations spend millions on elaborate retreats with trust falls and branded binders.
Oh, the trust falls.
But the solution is shockingly low-tech. You literally just need one leader to sit down at the table, abandon self-justification, and say, I screwed this up and I am terrified about what it means for our next quarter. And the entire ice shelf shatters.
The ice shelf shatters, the polite hostage situation ends, and real, messy, resilient human connection begins.
Okay, I want to take a hard left turn here and throw a massive wrench into this entire thesis. Let's play devil's advocate with the ultimate modern reality, the digital world.
Oh, this is the big one.
Everything we have talked about, looking someone in the eye, seeing their nervous body language, sitting in a room and having a productive argument, assumes a physical reality. But we are rapidly moving into an era where we don't have to do that anymore. We have remote work, we communicate via text, we interact through digital avatars. Does this physical flesh and blood vulnerability even matter in what we might call the digital endgame?
That is the existential crossroads of our generation. The digital endgame is the ultimate test of Mayo's thesis. Because right now, tech companies are utilizing incredibly sophisticated algorithms to customize perfect, frictionless virtual communities for every single user.
We touched on this earlier, the cyber prosperity. You can go online right now, and within 10 minutes, the algorithm will find you a community that perfectly aligns with your every niche interest, validates your every political opinion, and aggressively filters out anyone who pushes back.
And that cyber prosperity is a trap. Let's look at the UI, the user interface and user experience of these platforms. They are intentionally designed by behavioral engineers to eradicate transaction costs.
They eradicate friction.
Entirely. If someone in your digital community posts something you mildly disagree with, you don't have to engage in the uncomfortable, vulnerable process of the 3-step icebreaker. You don't have to reveal your hopes and fears.
You just click mute.
You swipe left. You block them. The algorithm learns that this caused you friction, and it makes sure you never see that person or that viewpoint ever again.
It's an architecture of instant gratification. It's an IV trip of constant algorithmic agreement.
But in feeding us that frictionless agreement, these platforms actively rob us of the exact mechanisms required to mature as human beings.
Right?
Friction, vulnerability, and the pain of navigating interpersonal conflict are not bugs in the human operating system. They are the features that force us to grow. If your environment is curated to keep you permanently comfortable, you never build the psychological calluses needed to survive the real world.
We're basically building psychological echo chambers where our emotional immune systems degrade because they are never exposed to any germs.
Exactly. We are witnessing a macro-historical cycle repeating itself, but on steroids. Think back to the Industrial Revolution.
Okay.
Millions of people were ripped from their agrarian tribal communities and thrown into atomized factory cities. It caused massive social shock, alienation, and despair.
The first wave of isolation.
Yes. But eventually, human nature won out. Those atomized workers pushed through the friction and built new physical communities. They built labor unions, social clubs, neighborhood associations. They rebuilt the container.
But today, the technology offers a painless escape hatch. Why go through the terrifying, awkward, sweaty vulnerability of building a real community in your physical neighborhood with real conflicts and real flaws when you can just plug into a VR headset and join a frictionless cyber community that gives you a synthetic dopamine hit of fake belonging?
Because, as the fMRI data and the cortisol levels prove, the body cannot be fooled indefinitely. A painless, frictionless life is ultimately an isolated, toxic life.
The biology catches up.
The primitive brain still knows the difference between algorithmic engagement and true, vulnerable human touch. The cortisol still spikes. The internal inflammation still rises. The scissors gap continues to widen.
Wow.
To survive this digital era, we cannot just drift along. We have to consciously, aggressively rebel against the frictionless algorithm. We must actively reclaim the courage to have our feelings hurt, to experience the awkwardness of friction, and to rebuild messy, inefficient flesh and blood connections.
Which brings us to the ultimate, somewhat chilling question for you listening to this right now. As artificial intelligence advances, the technology is only going to get exponentially better at faking this connection. Very soon, the market will offer you perfect virtual friends.
It's already starting.
You will be able to subscribe to perfect digital partners, AI companions, and entirely synthetic cyber communities that literally never challenge you, that anticipate your every emotional need, that agree with every single word you say, and that are programmed to make you feel like the smartest, most flawless person in the universe. When the illusion of connection becomes completely indistinguishable from reality on a screen, and it demands absolutely zero vulnerability, zero friction, and zero courage from you, will you still have the strength to choose the messy, painful, beautiful reality of being human? Think about that next time you look down at your dashboard and watch those numbers tick up.